Hey guys, welcome to the summit. If you're watching this, we are so glad that you're tuning in. We want to have a conversation about everything going on in the country right now, the injustice that is before us. And so I've asked three of my friends to join me in this conversation. I just appreciate you guys coming for this. I was just asking you, can you all just briefly introduce yourself and just say something about you so they can get to know you?
Sure. I'm Camry. I don't know anything. It's kind of hard to put on the spot. So I'm 22. I'm attending SEF, and that's about it.
I'm Thomas. I'm 26. I've been going to Church of Hope for, 7 years now. And I've only been in America actually for 5 years. I've been going back and forth. I'm actually from Canada. That's where I was born and raised.
My name is Don, and I'm 29 years old, and I grew up in America. My mom's from Trinidad, so Trinidad and Tobago. My dad's from America.
Awesome. I'm going to ask my friend Thomas if he would just lead us in a short prayer before we start.
Dear God, thank you for bringing us all together here today to just get to know each other better, to share each other's heart, to get a deeper understanding for what your creation is and the love that you share for all of us, Lord. Help us to keep open minds, open hearts, and to open our ears, Lord, to hear the plight of the people that are speaking, Lord. Thank you for the heart that everyone has for coming to see this video. Thank you for the heart of the people who have organized it and are here sharing. We praise you. We love you. Thank you. In your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. So the first question I want to ask you guys is, what do you want people to know most about your experience being black in this country?
I guess I'll start. Something that's very big in my life, being the lightest person on the couch, a lot of people look to me and think like, oh, like he probably doesn't have to deal with that. My father was white and my mother was black, so not everyone looks at me as a black person. But racism is real, and it's something that's been real in my life as well. So just the marginalization of even like thinking that like I'm too white to be black enough to be like racially profiled is like something that like I have to deal with. And like even that in itself is another form of racism that people don't realize, you know? Like something I've gotten my whole life, people would say like, oh, you're the whitest black person I know. And like such a hurtful statement without even realizing it, because like you're either complimenting me on being like acting more white than my skin color, or you're berating me for acting too white for my skin color. Like either way, you're judging my actions based on how I look. And like that in itself is racism. And people don't realize like how that can affect a person. So just like, that's really like the life experience, life journey that I've come through, is that people have told me that my whole life. And then it came to a point where I started to believe it. And like now through God and like through Jesus, I've learned that like my identity is in him, not in my skin color. And like, though I have this skin color, it's not the only thing that defines who I am. And what people say about me and people say about how I act is not the person that I am. It's what God says that who I am.
Yeah, I had a similar, like growing up in school, it was like people were calling me like Oreo and like all those things, and just like in that statement alone is very offensive to the black culture, because what you're saying is like, oh, like if you sound a little educated or you sound educated, you're white. You know what I mean? So what that's saying is like, oh, education's only for white people.
Yeah.
And so I have to be dumb or act like what you want me to be to fit into your world, into your life, and not inconvenience or offend you. So I have to be what you want me to be. You know what I mean? And it was like very hard. And then it also came from white kids and black kids, because a lot of times people are afraid of things that they're not used to. Yeah. So they'll say it's weird, it's this, it's that, and it's not okay, you know what I mean? And so it's tough for kids when you're like trying to do well, and then people discourage you and say, oh, that's not the norm, so you're not okay, you're this, you're that, you know what I mean? And so then you're not black enough for the black people, you know what I mean? And you don't fit in the white people's box, you know what I mean? And so it just creates this like identity growing up where you're like, okay, like who am I? And there's like a struggle and this battle inside, and you're like, I know what's right, and I know what's going to help the community, and I feel like what's going to help me and people around me is just like be true to who I am, what I like. You know what I mean? Like I like tennis. I love tennis. People tease me for that. You know what I mean? So that's been something growing up in school, like where it was kind of like an issue. You know what I mean? But
so we kind of experience the same thing, you know, even though my skin tone is not as bright and like light. I've been called Oreo for acting too white. My family, oh, you're this, you're that, you're talking proper. Instead I get, oh, she's a white girl, y'all. And I'm like, no, I just, you know, different, raised differently, different environment, different home. So I want people to know how uncomfortable it is to have, like, to even look black or to even have black skin. Walking in the store, you're automatically assumed that you're going to steal, or you can't. They already have like a how do I say? I don't know.
A preconceived idea.
Yes, like how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to talk. Like if someone comes to you and they're angry, they expect you to automatically snap because the color of my skin or because I look black or my culture is black, you know, instead of me being calm. So if you're calm, oh, we didn't expect that. But it's very uncomfortable. Like you don't, like Don was saying, you really don't know your identity. And even Thomas, like, who am I supposed to be? Like, what do you want me to be? It's very uncomfortable to walk into a room and you're like, everyone can be themselves and you have to kind of fill out the room. Okay, I can't say this, I can't say that because you're black. And I'm pretty sure, like, you know, every community experiences that, but I feel like it's more towards the black community because when you're in a more, I don't want to sound racist, more white environment, you're supposed to act white. Even then you're in a black community, like they were saying, in the black community, you act proper, you're considered white, so you're not black enough, you know? So it's just very uncomfortable for some of us, most of us.
yeah, and I think to add on to that about the whole anger thing, it's like we're painted as this angry race, and so like anytime like I get a little upset, it's amplified to how angry I actually am. I'm like, I mean, I'm not that really upset, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like if I get show a little bit of anger, it's like, oh, the black man's gonna get angry again and he's gonna snap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like other people will get upset and it's like, oh man, like what's wrong with him? You know what I mean? It's like wait, what's going on? Are we asking the right questions? You know what I mean?
So somebody the other day, actually, well, it was you, Thomas.
Yeah.
The other day, you and I had a conversation, and you mentioned micro-racism. And so my question is, what is micro-racism, and how does it affect you guys, and how does it affect white people, you know, anybody that is of a different color?
Yeah, it's a really great question, actually, and it's something that not a lot of people have heard of, or maybe they've heard of in the back of their minds and don't really understand. But micro-racism is basically when a racist act is performed by anyone unbeknownst to themselves. So this can be, like I've actually kind of mentioned one previously where I said that people often say that I'm the whitest black person they know. Like, and I think a lot of the people that have said that to me don't mean that to be offensive. They're like, oh, like you're so unique, you're so special, and they mean it as a compliment. But when you break that statement down, it's still a judgment based on my race, and therefore is racist, and it's like root. So that's like what micro-racism is. It's like racism that is hidden by your own bias. This is a really important issue for a lot of people because, well, we don't really know we're doing it. You could be going around through your daily life talking to people of color and not knowing that you've offended them, and them still carrying that hurt around with them because they didn't take the time to share that with you. Something that really has been a big issue in my life is I've kept a lot of my hurts in personally. People that have hurt me, I don't take the time to go out of my way and say like, hey, that was racist, don't do that again. You know, I just say like, oh, maybe they didn't mean it so bad, it's fine, and I just kind of like bottle it all up. So like just knowing these things and being more conscious and aware of these things can bring a better relationship through all races, through all colors, by taking the time to really think about what we're saying to people and that our words matter.
Have you guys experienced micro-racism in your lives as well?
Yeah, a few times. Like when I go to play basketball, like I'm not a basketball player. I don't like basketball, but like I like to exercise, and so I'll go out and people will be like, oh, like he's good because he's black. You know what I mean? And so, and then sometimes like like when I'm like dating, you know what I mean? Sometimes or like interested in a girl, like she'll be like, oh well, if you like, or like somebody will be talking in a circle, they'll just kind of just say like, hey, like if I were to date black guys, like you'd be on my list, you know what I mean? And so like it's just like you're trying to be nice, but it's like like I don't know how that fits into you know, so that, yeah, like,
Yeah, like they mean it as a nice thing, but really it's still a judgment, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't fully understand, but I have had someone say, "You have pretty hair for a black girl," and I'm like, "Oh," you know. And inside, I want to scream, I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" And to her, it was a compliment, like you said. So I'm like, "That's not really a compliment, but okay." Like, you know, "Oh, thank you." And inside, you're like, "Okay, why can't I just have pretty hair? Why do I have to have pretty hair for a black?" Who has the prettiest hair? What race?
Yeah.
What nation or whatever? Like, you know, everyone has pretty hair, different races. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And so it's like if you're smart, you're smart.
Yeah.
If you're pretty, you're pretty. You know, it's not like you're pretty for or you're smart for. It's just, you know, compliments need to be straightforward. They don't need a color or a race attached to them because that's offensive.
Yeah.
And I think I mean, speaking as a white person and knowing a lot of, you know, white people, I've heard people say this. I've heard this kind of thing, and you know, and my mind hasn't even, to be honest, like I haven't always recognized that. I've just been in the last, you know, couple of years, I've really recognized, you know, when I've heard that. But it's a totally different perspective that you guys bring, and somebody like even myself, you know, needs to know that, and super helpful for you know, white people, anybody to recognize, hey, I have, you know, there's prejudice behind what I'm saying. And I think there, you know, people like you're saying, I don't think a lot of people mean it that way, but that's the message that they're sending, and that's the hurt that they're causing. So if they can recognize it, then they can go, oh my goodness, I didn't mean to do that, but I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I want to fix how I talk to people.
Amen.
So it's good.
Yeah, we all have biases, whether you've instilled them in yourself or culture's given them to you. Like, biases exist in all of us, and it's our job as Christians and as people who care about each other to combat those biases, to bring love to everyone.
Yeah. That was good.
I do have another. When I was going to school, I'm not going to say the school name, but when I was going to school, I was in middle school, and it was only like 4 black people there, and the rest were like white. I'm assuming they were white. Having good grades was like a shock to the teachers. I was really smart. I mean, I am smart, but having like those, you know, on paper, like, oh, like they're shocked, like, oh, okay, you did great. And I'm like, okay, like, does it matter? And it's like they would expect a white student to automatically know the material, get a good grade, but for the black student, it would be like I said, a shock to them. Like, oh, you did good. I'm proud of you, and that kind of like hurts. And like, even as a child, like a child should have to experience that type of, because then you start to think, am I dumb? Am I not smart enough? Like, are they smarter than me? Like, anyone can be smarter than anyone. Hey, that's your brain, you know. So yeah, I'm pretty sure she didn't mean to. But maybe in the back of her mind, it was like, okay, maybe she had experiences with black students that weren't, you know, I don't say weren't bright, but maybe had a hard time learning, and then the other students did, but it's not everyone, you know.
Okay.
So.
And like right there, that comment about like you thinking like, am I not smart? You know what I mean? Am I not supposed to be smart?
Yeah.
Like, are we as a culture supposed to be dumb?
Yeah.
Or are like we less than? You know what I mean? And so like as a kid, that is stress that we don't realize as children. You know what I mean? And then it causes lack of performance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it weighs on our body. It weighs on our minds. And then there's all these things that we're going through, and not to mention that our parents are going through these things. And so who knows what else is added onto their life on top of just being black. You know what I mean? And so those are big parts that play into the whole situation.
Yeah, like we, as people of color, in any scenario, it doesn't matter really what it is, we still have to add on the fact that we're breaking a societal norm. You know, you can't just be good at math. because now you're also good at math, and wow, I'm surprised you're good at math. So now I have to always be good at math, because if I screw up, now I'm letting down my whole race.
Yeah.
You know, like now I'm going to prove everyone right that I'm bad at math, you know? So it's like everything we do, we have that in the back of our mind. Like, you know, you go to a store, now they're looking at you to see if you steal. Well, now you definitely can't steal, because if you do steal, now you're proving everyone right, you know?
Yeah.
So like every single thing we do, we have to think extra hard about everything we do, about not just being ourselves, but about proving people wrong about the opinions that they have about us.
Yeah.
And that's not fair, that I should have that. I shouldn't walk around holding that weight.
Yeah.
That's not my weight to carry, but it's the weight that I feel I have to carry.
You have to work harder for
Yeah.
everything and be excellent, like you said.
Yeah.
It's not like it was something we chose. We were just born.
Yeah,
We're just born.
I want to pick something else. Believe me. If I could pick like a no-care life, I would. I would love to have that, but I don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
I don't have that privilege to not care. I have to care.
I feel like we have to be, our manners have to be perfect. We can't, yes ma'am, no sir. Even talking to an officer or talking to someone that's even black, like our moms, it's yes ma'am, yes sir. Don't, you know, none of that. Like I said, our grades could be top of the line. If we get one C or B or D, oh, you know, I already knew that he was dumb. I already knew this and that. He didn't know anything. Maybe he cheated on his test. And it's, we have to be perfect beings. And like I said, we were just born. Like, why do we have to be shaped into a perfect being when we were just born? You know, everyone gets to act the way they want to act. But we have to, like, straighten up.
Yeah.
Be a good kid, you know?
Yeah. If we screw up, we're proving people right. Where there are those out there who, if they screw up, they become an outlier and not the proof of a belief. So there's just a lot more weighing on this.
So the next question I want to ask you guys is, what is systemic racism? And have you felt the effects of systemic racism in your family, in your personal life? And if you have, how have you felt those effects?
Thomas, you're good with
Yeah.
words.
Okay,
So you give the definition.
Okay, we'll start with systemic racism. So what is systemic? Systemic is the root system. So basically it's racism within the system. This primarily refers to like the governmental system, the bodies that run this country. And America primarily, not so much in Canada, but also Canada as well too. I'll speak on that later if we have time. But America was built on the backs of slaves. The country as a whole was founded on the work that slaves did to kind of bolster up its community. And people know that. People know slaves happened 400 years ago. Everyone understands that it happened, and people just think that it was 400 years ago, and then it was done. But it was actually ingrained into the system. And how this kind of went about affecting us today is that, for example, there's a term called redlining. I encourage you to look this up. But banks and politicians would draw red lines and markers around communities where they would avoid funding and then allow all of the people of lesser kind of poverty status to go into those areas so they could boost funding to other areas. And then they would actually share these maps with the banks so that people who came from those areas wouldn't be able to receive loans, so they couldn't buy out of those areas. And then they would be able to share that with the politicians, who would then go and market themselves to the better areas. So like how this all kind of loops together is, this is where ghettos come from. This is like ghettos are systemically created by the government to exist. It's not just like, oh, black people don't have money and they all kind of come and be friends together. Like, no, they were created to be that way. They were designed and drawn to be these places where people didn't have money so that other people could have more money. So this kind of, in my personal life, I haven't felt it so much in America, but I have felt it in Canada, where I came from. I'm actually only technically second gen. My mother moved to Canada from Jamaica, and we started there with very little, almost nothing. And being at the bottom, trying to bring yourself up, the system's not always designed to help you. And I see that just in so much of America's culture, is that the system's not designed to help the little guy. It's not designed to help the person who is on the bottom to get their hands up. And we really need to combat that. We need to change that. That's systemic racism.
Yeah. And so like what this and how this really looks and like all like how it unfolds is like I helped at like this AVID program. And things like these kids, like what it does for us as a culture is we lack exposure to different things. Mm-hmm. Because the people that you see on a daily basis are usually the people that inspire you. You know what I mean? So you have black kids that grow up and they're like, people are like, why do they only chase the ball? They only want to sing or dance or like be part of the arts because it's the only thing we see us doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we only see us, like, on the football field. We only see us, like, on a basketball court. And that's where we see, like, people doing things. So, like, and like, I think people they underestimate how beautiful it is to see somebody like you doing something that you might want to do. You know what I mean? And I think as you get older, like, I go to a doctor, my doctor's white. You know what I mean? Like I go to the bank, most of the time the bank teller's white. You know what I mean? Like, so like you like are encountering these people in your life that may inspire you, and they're not really like you. And so it takes really probably like a more of a assertive personality to, like, not to get past that. You know what I mean? So for example, like, my niece, she's like this little girl, and my they put on the Michelle Obama has like the documentary about her book and them in the White House, and my niece was so happy. She was just like, "Oh, mommy, I'm gonna do this," and she was like just encouraged, and it like dawned on me. I was like, she's really excited to see somebody like her. You know what I mean? If you know anything about me, I love Beyonce, I love Serena Williams, because they're more than just doing something. They're more than doing something good. They're doing something good and great, like with black skin. And black women have it real hard because they're women and they're black. So they just have like these double notches, and it's just very hard for them. And so, like, to get back into the point about exposure, is like, I went to predominantly white schools, and I wasn't afraid of taking risks and going out and hanging out with other people. But like, if you're in a project and you have school zoning, which is terrible, I think school zoning is just terrible.
Yes,
and
completely.
So when we want to treat a certain class or group bad, we can't, because they all go to the same school, and so the person that they look up to is their cousin, who's probably working at wherever, you know what I mean, and it's probably like, who knows what they're doing, you know what I mean, who knows what they're up to. So their examples aren't great. So, but what happens is, because it started off so bad, like in school, like you were saying, like the expectation wasn't as high for you because you're black. So somebody, and you were doing well in school. So for a kid who isn't doing well in school and is having challenges, oh, let's just help you graduate high school. That's not what they tell white kids. Like, I've literally sat there and seen them be like, oh, we got to get you in this. We got to get you in this program. Let me call your parents. Let me talk to this. Let me talk to the guidance counselor. Like, and I've been like involved in the school system, and like, it's just like in a little bit as far as helping. And there's programs, but what happens is the access to the programs isn't there. You know what I mean? So like, how are these people going to be educated, and what can help them? You know what I mean? And so then you have the HUD, the housing program. It's like, oh, we're going to help them. But the HUD housing program only gives them homes in the projects. So the only place you can live is in the projects. You know what I mean? So there's no like exposure to something different. You know what I mean? And so like, literally exposure alone to something new and different can literally help you. I didn't know like computer software was a job, like till I was like 22, 23. Wow. Like I didn't know like engineering. Like I knew engineering as a category, but I didn't know like there was like civil engineer. I didn't know there's mechanical engineer. And a lot of these kids, I talk to like some, like, no offense to little white kids, but I talk to some little white kids. He's like 7 and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna be this. I'm like, what is that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how'd you hear about that? You know what I mean? So the exposure is like not there for us as a black culture, because like our expectations are so much lower. They're like, oh, yeah, you should just grow up and take care of your family and graduate high school. Yeah. And graduate high school is not going to help you take care of your family. You know what I mean? And like, I'm not saying college is the way, but I'm just saying like exposure in general. You know what I mean?
So you're saying like we're like stuck in a way, like where they stick us in place and they want us to stay there, and in that little dome. Yeah. No exposures, anything, no exposure to anything positive, because the projects is not always negative, but most of the time it is. The kids grow up to be that way sometimes, majority of the time. And the parents, when they were kids, they experienced negative experiences and they didn't go anywhere, and that kind of set them back. So now your kids is set back. Yeah, exactly. And I've seen this video on Facebook, and this guy, I guess they were like racing. He said, he was asking questions basically pertaining, I don't want to say pertaining just to white people, but most of all the white kids stepped up because their parents had so many head starts in life. They weren't pushed back. They weren't confined in a little area. They were able to experience and go here and there and there. Like Don was saying, our kids or Black people, our only expectation is to graduate high school. You know, and now it's like, do we even make it to high school?
Yeah.
Do we make it to graduation? Because, and I feel like that's where the Black on Black crime, and I'm not saying it's a real thing, but, you know, I do see our own kind killed each other. Every race kills each other. But I really feel like that's from the negativity and that's from the aggression. That's from, you know, the system put in our head that we are not worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if we feel worthless, so we feel like another life of a Black person is worthless, you know, we're not going to take it seriously. And there's so much anger in the Black community. There's so much depression that goes unnoticed. Your parents don't notice it. And if you try to speak to them, it's not real. You know, to them, I've experienced that. It's not real. You know, like, depression is not real. Like, what are you talking about? You're like, no, I'm serious. I'm depressed. You're fine. Go drink some hot tea or something. You know, it's, to them, they had to deal with their struggles, so they don't believe that we're struggling. They, to a certain extent, they do, but not like to where we want to kill ourselves or we're depressed or we're crying at night because we're experiencing racism, and they know that it's real. But it's going back to what Don was saying, exposure. Like, if we had that chance, like, we went to Norway, that was great for me, and I go tell my Black family and Black friends, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's possible to get out of the country. I'm like, oh no, that's weird stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I feel like they're kind of in, like, not enslaved, but they're kind of just trapped in that dome.
Yeah.
They don't know any possibility. They don't know that they can travel the country, maybe do something different with their lives, move to the UK, move this way. They just know the projects. They know the Black community. They know that this is the area, and they're so used to it. You get trapped in it. It just becomes a lifestyle. Like a second nature.
Well, the thing is, like, what the system does in general is, like, anytime you step outside of the projects, you do go out of the area, you seem like, oh, I'm the only one. It becomes real.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's like, if I move 2 states, what I know, nobody's for me. Why am I going to move and go somewhere? You know what I mean? The depression thing is an education thing. Diet is an education thing. We just don't have access to those things. You know what I mean? And so it's just like that's just a point that just really gets me, because I'm like, really, education is the key. You know what I mean? And so, like, the thing is, like, the answer is, like, I guess the question is, how do we educate, like, everybody on these issues? You know what I mean? Because, like, we're at a point, all the protesting and everything is at a point where we're a people group where we're saying, this is bigger than our culture, it's bigger than us, and we need help. We need help from everybody. You know what I mean? And everybody's, like, ignoring it. We're ignoring it. You know what I mean? I think now and everything, the climate that everything is, finally we are getting an opportunity to say, like, hey, we need help. Somebody help.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to talk on the school district because I don't think everyone probably knows, like, how some districts and schools work. So in America, there are some school districts that the school is funded by the local income of the housing around the school. Okay, so this is kind of another thing we're talking about, the redlining and with systemic racism. When you have an impoverished neighborhood, you also have an impoverished school. That impoverished school is then going to do less for the children in that school because it doesn't have the resources and the funds to do that. They're going to get less opportunities. They're going to get less education. They're going to then graduate from said school with opportunities and education to then do low-income jobs, which then means low-income school. So there's this vicious cycle that happens in these districts that keeps people stuck in their ruts. And the system is set up for this because it's set up that way so that people who are in the affluent neighborhoods can have their affluent schools and can have their affluent jobs and can have their affluent dreams. So, like, someone has to suffer in order for someone else to kind of rise way far above. And the system was made to be this way. And I don't think everyone really realizes that, like, that's the America that we live in. That's just the foundation of, like, our country. And it happens to so few people that people don't really realize this is a reality. This is a thing that's actually happening right now, actively, today in America, you know? So I just really, I hope this kind of opens some of your eyes to these issues, and thank you for being here and listening to this, but this is the life that we face, you know? This is us being here saying, like, please help us change this. Yeah. Help us make a difference.
Yeah. because of that, being stuck, I don't think they realize it's a possibility, like they can't even imagine being outside of that dome.
Yeah, like physical racism is gone, mental racism is still here. Physical slavery is gone, mental slavery is still here. Physical racism is still here, sorry.
I was like, sorry, Tom.
We can edit that out. Let me say it again. Let me say it again for that. Physical slavery may be gone, but mental slavery is still here. We still live in an area or in a mentality where we feel like we can't be more than what we're called to be. We're just called to graduate high school. We're just called to make it by. We're just called to live to the next day. We're not called to something bigger. And that's the mentality that we grow up with. And that's not fair.
And it's tougher because, like, even like when you watch TV, you watch a movie, or you watch like they're trying to really paint like a picture of like a bad scene. And like anytime we see us, we're doing something bad. We're stealing. We're doing the murdering. You know what I mean? And they really use that and they push that. And then like not so recently, like you see like black superheroes, black princesses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that does a lot. You know what I mean? Like the only kid I know is my niece. You know what I mean? So she's all the ones that like it like brings me joy to see her get excited about a princess that looks like her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think growing up I used to undervalue because like growing up I was also kind of the mentality of like, oh, like we just need to try harder. We need to try harder. And like people are trying, you know what I mean? Everybody aren't born with the same tools, you know what I mean? Like, you speak really well, you do great with your words, you know what I mean? And I'm like athletic, you know what I mean? We all have our own gifts and talents, you know what I mean? We're more than our skin color.
I'm a good listener.
And you're really good at school.
And really good at school, yeah.
So my wife, we were talking the other day, and she's worked in the projects for most of her life, and she was telling me that the kids, when she's working with them, there is they don't feel like the system is going to work for them. And so what happens is if somebody steals something from them, they go and they steal from somebody else, or somebody hits them, they hit them back. And what she's always done with them is she's come to them and said, hey, when have I ever not been fair to you? Hey, when have I ever not given you what you deserve? Hey, when have I ever not made things right? Because and what she was saying is that these kids, because of that cycle that you were talking about, is these kids feel like the system won't work for them, so they have to do things on their own, and they've got to make it right themselves because nobody else is going to see them and make it right for them. And so she goes down there and tries to change that mentality. And so with that, what she was saying is when she teaches them that, hey, this system will work for you, like you are seen, the kids stop stealing from one another. They stop hitting each other because they trust the system. They trust that somebody is watching out for them and looking out for them, because they haven't seen that in other places. But when my wife comes, they see it in her and in her team that's down there. And so I think that's a system. You're talking about systems that work. That's a system that works, and that's the kind of thing, maybe, that's a part of it. But some kind of system that reinforces that, hey, you're seen, you're heard, and you're going to be helped.
That's the mentality that our children are raised with without us teaching it, Like, that's what they learn from the world. That's what they learn from society. What they learn from the world telling them that, like, we don't care about you.
Yeah. And just kind of just saying survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool, that reinforcement of like creating an atmosphere of like, okay, like this can happen, something that we can trust in, something that we do think will help. You know what I mean? And so that's pretty much what all the protests and everything is about. You know what I mean? Like, give us something that will help us.
Yeah. We're not against systems.
Yeah.
We're against the one that doesn't work. We know we need systems. We just need one that actually like notices us and like works properly, like your wife is instilling. Like that's awesome. So
my next question for you guys is, what would you say to someone who would say, well, hey, why should this matter to me personally? If I myself, I haven't done anything wrong, why should this matter to me? What would you say to that person?
We as Christians in particular have been told by God that we need to honor justice. We need to act on behalf of justice. So to say that, like, I'm a good person, I'm not a racist, I didn't do anything bad, that's great. I'm glad you feel that way. Maybe that is actually true. But if you're not doing something good, you're still not doing all that God's called you to do. So if you see racism, if you see injustice, you are called to speak against it. You are called to change it. You are called to act against it. That's the mantle that you should be saying. So if you can't say like, oh, I'm actively fighting this. If all you can say is I didn't do it, then you really haven't done all you need. So that for me is why this matters at an individual level, because you don't know who is out there suffering. But if you do know who's out there suffering, how can you possibly turn a blind eye? So like right now we're in a place where like the country is in uproar because we have seen on video a man suffering. And why did it take that long? Why did it take so long to get to this point? Why did we have to visibly see it in front of us on video to care? These things have been happening for hundreds of years, and people have just said, I didn't do it, I don't have to deal with it. You do have to do something. You do have to do something. Just because it's not your problem doesn't mean you don't have to be the solution.
Yeah, it's like you seeing a person on the sidewalk that's bleeding out. You just walk past and like, oh, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to do something drastic. You don't have to go down and be a medic. Call 911, call 911, get them out there, and you can leave. We're not asking you to be a superhero. What I believe the Black community is asking, Black and Brown, is to speak up. It don't have to be your concern fully, but sharing a picture or showing your support, giving us a hug, something so small. Like I think when people think we're asking them to do something, it's big. And honestly, my white friends, my Hispanic friends have, shared images and that's so small, like Black Lives Matter. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, thank you. And I try to say thank you as much as possible because we feel like I feel like I'm drowning in my own community. The Black community feel like we're drowning and we're so, like I said, we're so angry, we can't do anything about it. But seeing that how many people is aware, just sharing a picture, it feels like, slight relief. Like, okay, great. Like, we have someone behind us. We have the support. So would you walk past that person that's bleeding out on the sidewalk, or would you call 911? Something so simple.
And I think we all have to address this. Like, just because we're saying Black Lives Matter doesn't mean we don't think other people's lives matter.
Yes.
I think that's super important to point out because, like, it's just selfish comment in itself to just be like, oh, all lives matter. Like, anytime anybody says that, it, like, sends chills on my spine because I'm like, we're not saying that your lives don't matter.
Yes.
We're not being like, it's all about us. We're just saying, like, we're treated as if our lives don't matter, and we want to let everybody know that our lives do matter.
Yeah, we're not asking for special treatment.
Yeah.
We're asking for equal, fair treatment.
Yes.
And we have realized, and hopefully everyone in the world has now realized, that that's not currently happening. So in order for all lives to matter, Black lives have to actually matter.
Yes.
So we're not against any other kind of race. We're not against anyone else. All lives should matter. But right now, we feel as if they don't.
That's good. That was good. That's good clarity. That's good clarity to that for a white person, for example, that doesn't understand that. That's really good clarity for them. The next question I want to ask you guys is, by the way, you guys have been awesome, doing a really great job answering these questions and really helping help people understand. So it's awesome. What have been the effects of racism or prejudice in your life, and how has God brought you through those or broken those effects on your life?
I guess I'll go first. I've only recently dealt with this, so I'm going to try real hard not to cry, but if I do, I'm sorry. But probably the most overt and hurtful racist thing I've ever gone through in my life was in high school. I was in a private school, so 99% of the school was white. But there was one guy who had his locker next to me, and as we were just putting our books away in our locker, he called me the N-word. And I was like, wow. We just both took a moment. We're just like, whoa, that came out of nowhere. I have no idea what the heck happened here. And then he said to me, I don't know why I said that. That came out of nowhere. And I was like, okay, we're good here. And then he said, no, I don't care about your feelings. I just don't normally use that word. And then he walked away. And I was just like left there in like shock. I was like, what the heck just happened to me? Like, not only was I like racially profiled and like just like overt racism in my face, but then to also say that like the words he said had no matter to my feelings. He didn't care about who I am and my hurt, just about not saying the bad word, you know? So that's probably like the most like painful thing that I've personally been through regarding racism. And God's done a lot of work in me to get through that, because He tells me that my feelings matter. He tells me that my hurt is seen. He tells me that no matter what other people say about me or say to me, that He still loves me regardless of all of that. He tells me that my value is made in Him and my value is not found in anyone else outside of me. And these are the things I have to remind myself of constantly, that God is in control and that God is my Father. And that I get my value from Him. And that's how I've been able to slowly break these bonds of repression that I've been put upon my mind, that my feelings didn't matter, just not saying the bad word.
I have experienced that in middle school. The same. Someone called me the N-word, and they were in our conversation. I was talking to my sisters, my cousins, about my granddad. He had passed away, I think, like 4 years before. 4 years. And he walked past and he said a bad word. Basically said, "Forget your N, granddad." And I'm like, what? And I was very hurt and very angry, and just seeing him laugh, like, it was just so funny to see that black people hurt. And of course I was angry, so I acted out of my feelings and rational. I didn't say, at least I don't think I said anything racist, but it just, after the whole chaos, everything was over, it just left me in shock. Like, you think it's funny, like, you really think it's funny to be that mean to someone. Like, I was born this way. I didn't ask to be this way. I would ask to be any other way. And I was only like 12 or 13 at the time. But I experienced racism before that. But that was the main thing that really stuck with me even to now. I'm like, wow, you can just do that to someone. And then the next year in 8th grade, someone actually said they were going to bring a whip to school and whip me with it. And that there is, like, I was fearful. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, like, I don't care, you're trying to be tough. But in my mind, I'm like, man, like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get beat up. And calling me the N-word, this and that, laughing, giggling. Yeah, I'm going to bring you up to school and I'm slashing your back with it, this and that. I'm like, wow. And my sister had just recently left the school, and I was the only black kid in the class. And I felt so shut in. I didn't want to shed a tear because I didn't want to seem weak. I really feel like some people see black people as strong, and we are. Again, everyone's strong, we are, but I feel like they see us more as we can't be weak. At least that's what we're taught. We can't be weak in a country like this. We can't be weak in a world like this. So I held in my tears, and I just went home thinking, like, I gotta be prepared for this. Like, they're gonna bring a whip to school, and the next day he actually did. And I told the teacher, and she was outraged. And I don't know if he got in trouble for it, I'm not sure, but she was mad. So that kind of, like I said, kind of put relief off of me, like, okay, you care about me, because I'm human and not because, of that. But it took a while to even accept. After that, I really hated my black skin. Like, I hated my dark skin, my dark hair, my dark eyes, this and that. But when I found Church of Hope, I really found my identity. I started loving myself because I found other people that weren't like me that loved me. I'm like, wow, you like my hair? You like my skin? Really? Oh yeah, you're so beautiful. I'm like, oh, thank you. And so praying with them, talking to them, hanging out with them, I really found, like, okay, I could be myself. And when that block, those chains were off my heart, I'll allow God to come in and heal me, so I can find my true self. Now I love my skin. I love everything about me. I wouldn't trade it for the world. So yeah.
And so this last question, we've talked a little bit about this already, but it says this: how do we bring healing to our country moving forward?
Yeah, I think just like when you see a black child or you see like somebody that's black, just treat us like we're humans,
Yeah.
A lot of times, like Cameron was talking about earlier, like she goes places and do you feel like there's an expectation that you're going to do something wrong? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we never want to fulfill someone's negative stereotype. You know what I mean? I don't like stereotypes in general, whether they're positive or negative. You know what I mean? People, you know what I mean? I'm just not a fan of them. So I think in general, just like see us for us. See us for who we are. You know what I mean? See me as for Don Ward. You know what I mean? And I think that helps out a lot. You know what I mean? The next thing is like all the protesting is like just understand it's like we're a hurting people group that has a problem that's bigger than us. You know what I mean? And I think if America thinks back to when they first started, they were being oppressed by Britain, and they had like the Boston Tea Party, and they like threw all the tea in there. They damaged stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? I'm not supporting damaging or burning or looting anything, but I'm just saying like when you oppress a people group so much, you give them no choice when they have nothing to lose, and then you're like you're stuck in a place. So like as far as like just hear the cries of the oppressed group, you know what I mean, and I think a lot of people are here listening, and it will, as long as we move forward, and there are resolutions to the injustice, like it's more than just police brutality, like it's more than that. Like so for the people that are just focusing on this one George Floyd case, like it's more than that. There's tons of cases, you know what I mean? There's tons of scenarios. Let's talk about the scenarios that didn't happen. You know what I mean? That didn't make the news. You know what I mean? Let's talk about like I think we can look at like I love Serena Williams and Beyonce and like all those artists. You know what I mean? And like the reason I keep mentioning them is because like they did do really great stuff, but let's talk about the ones that didn't make it. You know what I mean? Where are they? You know what I mean? We didn't hear about them. You know what I mean? Let's talk about the people that did try to. Let's celebrate more of the average career job, like the black doctors, the black engineers. My cousin's a black engineer at the Air Force. You know what I mean? Let's celebrate like the average careers also, so that way other like black kids can feel inspired to do other things. So like when you see a black kid, inspire them, like help them. You know what I mean? Like when I see kids in general, I just see potential. You know what I mean? Amen. And so like anytime I see a child, I'm always like, if you see me around kids, like I light up, I love them because I just see so much potential for the future. And like when you see white, black, Hispanic, any culture, UK, India, any wherever they're from, like make sure that you see the potential that those kids have, because those are literally world changers, and they need to be inspired. In every interaction, little interactions make the biggest impression on kids. And so you saying something one time to a child, like they can believe that. If you tell a kid that they can be an astronaut, they might believe that, and then 20 years later, they're an astronaut. You know what I mean? So like I think that's really important. So just like encourage and see humans.
I think what we're doing right now is a great step. I think asking questions. I definitely think a lot of people don't even realize what all is going on around them. You know, we kind of play the apathy card, like, oh, it's not happening in front of me, so it must not be happening. Everything's fine. Things are not fine. They're not. They're really not. So ask why. Ask where you can help. Ask what you personally can do. Join a peaceful protest. If that's too much for you, join one on Facebook. If that's too much to you, find a group of people that will simply talk and listen and explain to you what they're going through. A lovely group that's on Facebook is Be the Bridge. They have people there who will simply talk and explain their life to you, and you can hear and listen and see like the things that you've been turning a blind eye to unknowingly. Just like open your eyes, open your mind, open your ears to hear these things, the plight of people who have been oppressed and are currently being oppressed. I think that's like the biggest like first step for sure. And all of that we're doing right now is an awesome part in that. Another thing I think is really important, and it's a lot harder to do, but I think is like really crucially important, is to educate ourselves on our politicians. Every single election, not just who's going to be the president, but like who's in the primaries, who's in your local elections, who's the district attorney. Like actually do our due diligence to look up and see who these people are and what they stand for, and then put our vote where our mind is, put our vote where our heart is, and actually vote for real change in this country, because it goes deeper than just us sitting here.
And like Don was saying about the riots and looting, like I was telling my friend, I was like, I'm in the community, but I don't have to say or the right to tell anyone how to react
Mm-hmm.
of such hate. Like, these people that could be rioting and looting and stuff, acting crazy, lashing out, they could be experiencing this for years, you know. And I think the big thing of this is asking America, do you see us now? Are you listening now? Do we have your attention now? Do we have your attention? Like, are you going to listen to us this time? And I really feel like that's, okay, some people, they just want to do it just because, but majority, like what it started off with was, we want our voice to be heard, not just the Black community, the injustice of everybody, you know, Hispanics, Asians, even whites, like all of us have had experience in with the police, and this is what all started in police and racism. So how we can move forward from that is just listen, like give us your attention. When we ask for it the first time, give it to us. You know, you don't have to give your full attention, but listen, put it in your notes, put it in the back of your head. Maybe I can do this differently next time. Maybe I can say this differently next time. It's just, that's what you can do. For me, I would want someone to listen to me. I want my voice to be heard. And that's what I feel like the process and everything is saying. Like, do you hear me now?
Yeah. I think like a big thing that we have forgotten to do as a country and like as a church and as a people group is to lament. We have, you know, when someone loses someone they love, you need to take the time to say like, that sucks, I'm sorry that happened to you, and feel that pain with them. And like right now, the entire Black community is rising up saying that like we lost someone, not someone who was amazing, not someone who was, you know, a king or anything, but someone who didn't deserve to be gone. And the world should look at us and see that and say, I'm sorry that happened, and lament with us. Someone is gone who should not be gone. And like we need to all feel that loss. And then only from there can we then move forward in love. If we skip over this point of lament, if we skip over this point of sorrow, we're just going to skip straight to anger and straight to rage. And that's when things kind of escalate. So we need to take the time to really feel that like hurt happens, and we need to all feel that collectively, that like there is injustice in this world, and just because it's not effectively on you doesn't mean that you don't have the job to come in and say, I'm sorry that it happened.
Yeah, like to tag on to that is just like, don't be all like, well, I don't see it happening, so it's not happening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the most damaging thing that happens to me is like sometimes I'll share a story about how I feel that I've been injustice in, and somebody would literally say, oh, well, I had that happen to me. And I literally would like, it like hurts, because I'm like, no, like you don't understand, you know what I mean? So like trying to debate everything off, like, and say, oh, that's not real, that's not real, that's not real, is like worse, because like we're saying we're not being heard, and you're saying I'm not hearing you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it just like encourages more anger, you know what I mean? Because we're like, okay, so I'm literally giving you facts and I'm telling you these things, but you're saying that these facts don't make sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like that is what you don't want to do.
Yeah. Like step one in every conversation to be to listen, not to combat, not to try and correct, not to debate, but just to hear us, like hear anyone.
Yeah.
You know, like injustice goes beyond just race.
Yeah.
Like I understand there are other people who have experienced injustices, and like we need to hear all of their voices.
And well, I'm not overstepping here, but I think the listening needs to come from both sides.
Yeah.
You know, the Black person needs to listen to what the white person is asking, because the white person genuinely doesn't know.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the white person needs to listen to how the Black person feels about something, and needs to go on both ways. And if both sides are listening, then change can happen. But if only one side is listening, then change doesn't happen. It's when parties come together, you know. I think that's what you guys are saying. So
Yeah.
You saying that, it makes me think of the video, George crying out, I can't breathe, Mama, I can't breathe. Were you listening to him? You know, you were hearing him, but were you listening? You know, and I think that's what you're saying. Like both sides needs to listen. Next time, listen to him. Next time, listen to someone that can't breathe. You know.
Yeah. Well, guys, I just want to thank you very much for sharing your insight, your thoughts, and your perspective. Like Thomas said, hey, this is a
This
step.
is a start. Yeah.
This is a step. And so just appreciate you guys being vulnerable, being transparent. You could have said, hey, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go on camera and let people, see my life. But you said, no, I'm going to open up my life. So hopefully that my story can bring healing. And so I just want to just honor you guys and just thank every one of you for being a part of the solution and helping. So thank you guys so much.
And thank you for your questions. Just for all white people or any people who are not really understanding what all this is, it's never wrong to ask.
Yeah.
Please, we're in a time right now when people are looking to be heard. Feel free to ask for their voice because they are willing and longing to give it to you. So please just ask.
Yeah. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to talk about it because I've always felt like this, you know what I mean? I think everybody should just realize that it's not now going forward. It's been happening.
Yeah.
And so so I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we just pray that you bring unity. Lord, we pray that we would be people that are slow to speak and quick to listen. All of us, God, to each other, and that, Lord, you bring us together. Help us, Lord, keep you first, God, because we know, Lord, that what's going to really solve racism and injustice is a changed heart, and we know that a changed heart comes from putting our faith in you, God, what you did for us on the cross all those years ago, God, dying for our sins. Lord, and we pray that people would put their faith in you, and we pray that those that need to repent for their sins, repent for their racism, repent for their prejudice, God, whatever it is, that they would do that, Lord, and that there'd be unity and wholeness and healing. We thank you for all this, Jesus. In your name, amen.
Mm-hmm.